How would he send screenshots if he wasn't willing to wait? It means that he was pleading for help. It means that he was asking for you guys to go and help him. He says, I know Ayub's not going to be happy with me telling you this, but Ayub was crying for a fact. Over these past couple of days, me and Ayub have actually been in DMs having a conversation. Okay. So tell me this then, Ayub. Show me the pictures of Jay in the back of the car smiling his face off, and also show me the booking confirmation that you would have received for the Airbnb that you booked. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with another interesting Jay SLATER video. I hope every single one of you are doing well. There's a few things that I've been thinking about over these past couple of days, a few things that are still bugging me. So this video is all about perspective, trying to understand a few bits of the story, as well as looking at some new footage that has been published by Chris Tenerife, as well as much more. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if we're newly watching, and let's get into it. Cool, so here we have a video of Sluggy and Chris Tenerife in Masca. This is clearly a part of their documentary. I want to take a look at this video in more detail. The title of this one says, Heading to the V-Notch where Jay was found. So let's take a look at this video.
We've actually still got a signal.
It's still shaded, and this is the top part of the ravine.
And this is a ditch
When we get to the bottom part.
heading towards V-Notch. We've actually still path down to the V-Notch. Aye, aye. I'll show you how steep that is. It's level.
Absolutely. Shows you how easy someone could have been pushed.
Don't look at the steep bed, is it? So the top road, they're there. We're underneath that thing. There's a bit of a building up there. House. Brother!
It's not noise, man.
So there is a path through another water ditch. This is a ditch that we're now in.
Really trying to find this ditch, isn't he? He said the word ditch at least twice now. He's really trying to find this ditch. As we know, ladies and gentlemen, the story that we've been told is that Jay was lying in a ditch cut by a cactus. Many of us have said, where is that ditch? How have they not been able to find that ditch? This is clearly one of the reasons why Sluggy keeps mentioning that ditch. See, it's weird in the inquest. The inquest doesn't mention anything about Jay falling the first time and then getting up and walking for 2.5 hours to then fall to his death. It doesn't mention that in the inquest. It only mentions that in the Spanish report, the court document that we have, as well as Mark Williams Thomas's podcast. They're the only two places that mention Jay falling, injuring himself, more or less calling for help, sending his screenshots, but deciding to then get up and continue walking. The only slight problem we have with that is the inquest tells us there were no injuries found prior to the fall that would have instantly killed him. See, when taking myself back to think about the pathology report, I'm struggling to get a pinpoint timestamp for when that head injury took place. So they can say the head injury was caused by the fall from height, but due to advanced decomposition of the body, if they were unable to determine whether Jay suffered from injuries prior to the fall, then it is possible that the head injury that Jay suffered from happened prior to the fall, but in the location of where Jay would have been thrown or pushed, the collision with the rocks would have caused more of those injuries. Again, the pathology report doesn't give us a timestamp. They're just saying the injuries that we found on the body do consist with a fall from height. If the head injury was caused prior to the fall and then Jay was pushed off or Jay was thrown off, only would it impact the injury to the head that Jay already had, but it will also cause various other injuries. Because honestly, the more I look at this ravine, the more it tells me Jay didn't walk through this. Look at this. And you're really trying to paint this picture. We understand how dangerous this place is. Chris and Sluggy at this moment of time are really trying to paint this picture, making it look like this is something that Jay would have attempted. He would have done this. He would have been climbing down mountains. Remember, he was in shorts and a t-shirt.
Towards me now, Chris. How's he coming?
What we got going on here? I mean, who would think about
so the
doing
V-notches.
No one.
No one. There.
honestly don't believe Jay done this. None of this whatsoever. On the way back from the V-notch.
Still shaded, and this is the top part of the ravine.
This is a
As
ditch
you see when we get to the bottom part of the
heading towards V-notch. So there is a
Based on the landscape that we've seen and based on the video footage that Sluggy was just showing us, I mean, this seems like it's not too far from the roads. So if this is the ditch that Jay would have been lying in, saying that he was cut by a cactus, telling Lucy he was going to die, how would he send screenshots if he wasn't willing to wait? See, that's another thing you have to question. If Jay was pleading for help, if Jay really wanted help, and based on the fact that he sent over 2 different versions of screenshots, a Snapchat version as well as the WhatsApp version, for the simple fact that Jay would have went out of his way to screenshot his location and send it over to Brad and over to Brandon or Lucy, it means that he was pleading for help. It means that he was asking for you guys to go and help him. If that's the case, and at that point he's lying in a ditch cut by a cactus and he feels like he's going to die, why would he then get up to continue walking into the ravine? Based on the screenshot location, you can see how far away from the road is. In fact, Jay would have been able to see how far away from the road he is. So why would he then continue to walk into the ravine? It doesn't make any sense. Remember when Rachel told us that the truth lies with us? She also said that the truth will come out if it needs to come out. When you actually think about it, it's so wild that she said that, bearing in mind we've got Debbie and Warren in a coroner's court demanding answers. Now it's starting to make sense as to why Sluggy and Chris Tenerife are trying to put together this visual documentary about Mascar and the mountains. This minor documentary that these guys are putting together, in my opinion, is being put in place to protect the people involved in this case. If you listen to people like Sluggy on them TikTok live streams, you will hear him painting Ayub's narrative as if he was there with Ayub. You're trying to tell the world Ayub's story and trying to make it look like everything was just normal. Why would you be painting Ayub's story and be trying to make it look like everything was normal when Ayub done nothing wrong? How do you know? You can't be trying to explain someone else's story when you don't even know the person and you wasn't even there. Another thing extremely weird is I was tagged in a video that I watched this morning, and this was a live audio with Sluggy saying it was for a fact Ayub was crying over what happened to Jay. He said, I know for a fact Ayub was crying. He says, I know Ayub's not going to be happy with me telling you this, but Ayub was crying for a fact when he heard what happened to Jay, or when he knew what happened to Jay. Over these past couple of days, me and Ayub have actually been in DMs having a conversation. In fact, I said to Ayub, prove these 2 things to me and I'll stop doing J-Slater content instantly. This is off the back of Ayub telling me that, oh, I've told you everything and I've told everyone everything. Okay. So tell me this then, Ayub. Show me the pictures of Jay in the back of the car smiling his face off. And also show me the booking confirmation that you would have received for the Airbnb that you booked. Those 2 questions, they're the only 2 questions. If he can show me pictures of Jay in the back of the car, and if he can show me the Airbnb booking confirmation that he would have received last year, I want times, I want dates, no fabrications whatsoever. If you can give me that, then I'll put this to bed. But guess what? Ayub didn't want to do that. His response to that was, you're a sausage. Followed by, he doesn't need to prove me anything, and he doesn't need to prove anyone anything. I mean, I wonder how they're going to feel about that when they ask you these questions at the inquest. Interesting. Furthermore, I only thought snitches make statements. Anyway.
This is a ditch
when we get to the bottom part
heading towards V-notch. So there is a path.
So this is the ditch heading towards the V-notch. They're really trying to paint this picture of Jay going through this ravine. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think it makes any sense to Warren, Debbie, none of them. None of them believe in Jay walking through this ravine. They just don't believe it. And after the videos we've been creating and the theories that we have and the evidence that kind of backs those theories, I think there's a number of people out here, including the family, that are looking at this differently. Big up man like Sol anyway, because he told man from early that he had been watching this channel from the very, very beginning. I have to be honest, he's totally unsure about what he believes happened to Jay. He does lean towards it potentially being an accident, but he does believe the people who took Jay to the Airbnb are responsible for his demise. As I've told Sol and as I've told you guys multiple times before, I believe they've had the wool pulled over their eyes. The Rolex situation never happened. They're just making it look like it happens because they needed to make it look like Jay had done something wrong, hence why you're never going to see him again. They just needed to make it look like Jay had done something wrong. But there was no proof that Jay had done anything wrong. It was just about manipulating the perception of the friends and the family. They were the only targets initially. You have to remember, these people that were involved in this cover-up didn't initially believe this was going to go bang and turn into an international worldwide case, where you have people in Canada, Australia, and all these different countries around the world overly invested in what happened to Jay Slater. That right there was one of the reasons as to why they needed people like Chris Tenerife and Sluggy to come out and help paint this narrative. The narrative that was more or less created by Abe, Brandon, Lucy, and you have to put Brad in there, but there is a part of me that believes Brad was forced into this. He had no choice. He had to go along with it. And one of the parts that Brad and his mum played was indicating where Jay's body was. Like I said, if you go back to the Isla interview, Brad indicates where Jay's body is, location, what it looks like. See, bearing in mind, whilst this is all going on, there's no mention of Brandon. No mention of Brandon whatsoever. And I've come to realize that Brandon is the one that all of these guys are protecting. Brandon's the one that's helping play out the main narrative of Jay leaving the Airbnb and more or less walking to the point where he walks off road. And I believe Brad was forced to back that up. Because Brad was unsure, I think Lucy and this Josh Forshaw guy put together that fabricated WhatsApp message. And that fabricated WhatsApp message gave Brad an alibi. It kept Brad out of it. But it also told us that Brad and Josh spoke to Jay via the video call. It's just that Brad doesn't mention being with this guy Josh when he does his interview with Isla, and Brad's never come out to confirm what Josh said is actually true. That's another reason why when the inquest resumes, it's going to be pretty interesting to hear what Brad's going to say. Brandon is the one that's being protected. For what reason, we don't entirely know for sure at this moment in time. But 110%, Brandon is the one that's being protected. He's the one that never went to the media and made any statement. He stayed silent. He spoke to Mark Williams Thomas, but he more or less played him. He gave him minimal information. And even when he said to Mark Williams Thomas, he told Jay to turn his location on, his instant response was, "Oh shit!" Why would your response be, "Oh shit," when you ask Jay to turn his location on? See, that wasn't Brad's response. Brad's response was they were a little concerned when they knew how far away he were. But based on the fact that Brad had information about taxis and walking time and cycling time, Brad recommended getting a taxi. But why was Brandon's response, "Oh shit," after he asked Jay to turn his location on? That's making it look like, again, it's a make it look like scenario. If you listen to Brandon's story, it's about making it look like Jay left the Airbnb. And he was laughing, he was happy when he left the Airbnb. Making it look like Jay walked off road when you spoke to him, but that was the last time you spoke to him. So that puts him in the location where you need him to be, and that's in the mountains, off road. And again, if you listen to Brandon's story tells you exactly that. There's not much to it. The story is to protect Ayub, corroborate that Jay was at the Airbnb, everything was fine whilst he was there. He left the Airbnb. I was on the phone to him whilst he left, or I was on a video call to him whilst he left. The thing that I remember word by word that stood out to me when I spoke to Jay on the phone was that he told me he walked off roads. Was there anything else that he mentioned? No, not off the top of my head. So again, they're only putting the points out that they want to put out. The main points. Jay was at the Airbnb, he left the Airbnb, and he went off road. And then the agent of that Airbnb is going to encourage the co-owner of that Airbnb to be the main witness. And all you're going to say is you see him at the bus stop and you see him walking that way, the wrong way. I left him at the bus stop, I closed my green door. Did you see him walk the wrong way, Ayub? No, I actually see him walk down the stairs, but that's about it. So you can see from early on, in the first weeks of Jay going missing, their story was simple. We have to keep this simple. We see him at the bus stop and he walked the wrong way. Brandon's going to confirm that he goes off road. Brad's going to back that up because he was pressured by Brandon and potentially his older brother. Then Chris and Sluggy are going to come along, paint the picture of him actually walking through this ravine, through the V-notch, to the point where you're ultimately going to find his body. Bearing in mind, these two people that are going to paint this narrative confirm that they didn't even see the body. They didn't even have full confirmation that the body was there, but they decided to call the Guardia Civil, give them a tip-off. And although they gave the tip-off the day before, Chris decided to go back into the ravine the following day. He got lost reception on his phone. Sluggy panicked, called the Guardia Civil and said, "Oh, mate, you got to go in there because Chris is lost." The Guardia Civil have gone in there to save Chris. At the time they've gone in there to save Chris, Chris is already out of the ravine. He's back on the phone to Sluggy. And Sluggy's saying, "Oh, I've just sent the Guardia Civil in for you." And he's like, "What? Why did you send them in for? I'm out. Now, whilst this is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and the Guardia Civil have gone into the ravine to more or less save Chris, according to their story and their narrative, guess what? They stumble across Jay. See, another thing that I want to talk about is the Secrecy Act that the police put in play to continue searching for Jay Slater. It never made any sense to me why the police needed a Secrecy Act. A Secrecy Act from what? Who are you trying to keep this a secret from? Now, that doesn't make any sense because initially the Guardia Civil was asking for what? Volunteers. So now, why are they making it a secret? But the big question you have to ask is, who's the secret being kept from? If they believed that Jay was in that ravine, and they didn't want anyone snooping, they didn't want anyone getting themselves involved, then the first thing they're going to have to do is tell all of the volunteers to stop turning up. The second thing they'll need to do is barricade the whole area where they're going to be searching so nobody goes into that area. I mean, it's a standard process, really. You barricade the area, you search the area you believe Jay's in, and voila, you find Jay. But no, these police officers didn't want to do that. They wanted a Secrecy Act, allegedly. They got this Secrecy Act, and although they got this Secrecy Act, they never found Jay's body. They're not the ones that found Jay's body. So in that 2-week process leading up to Chris giving them the tip-off, I mean, come on. Why would they need that tip-off? It makes no sense. You put this act in place to keep this search a secret, and you're the guys that don't even find him. And the following day, you go in there to save the person that allegedly gives you the tip-off. But you don't save the person that gives you the tip-off because he manages to get out. You actually stumble across Jay Slater's body, a decomposed body. One of the most sketchiest things I've ever heard. All right, cool. So off the back of the video that we've done the other day in regards to DTR and the blood that was found in the mountains, because it never made sense to any of us why DTR never brought this to the attention of the authorities. Yeah, that's animal blood. I'm the pet detective. Absolutely. I know animal blood when I see it. Anyway, Down the Rappers has responded. The question he was asked is one question I would like to ask, please. He said, on your search, you came across some blood on a rock and just quickly dismissed it as animal blood. He says, why was that not looked at as it could have been Jay's blood? If you're doing a search for a boy and come across blood, that could have been evidence. It makes no sense why DTR would have been involved in that search for a missing person. The initial intel given is that this guy's highly intoxicated. He's already been cut by a cactus, so he's suffering from an injury, and he feels like he's going to die. And halfway through your search, you find blood, and your instant conclusion is it's animal blood. Yeah, it's got to be a mountain goat's blood. Yeah, mountain goats, 100% mountain goats. Now, this is where DTR's response gets interesting, and also, in my opinion, proves this guy was up there doing absolutely nothing. He says, because Jay wouldn't have made it up there without ropes. So why was you up there? He said, in hindsight, it was probably trail markings for climbers. Oh, so now he's changing his whole tone. He went from 100% blood. He reiterated it how many times in that video? 100% blood. No, that's 100% blood. Now he's trying to say trail markings for climbers. He also goes on to say, I shouldn't have even attempted it without ropes. Hope this helps. So he's trying to say the point he got to where he see the blood in the mountain or blood on the rocks, he needed to use a rope and a harness to get up there. But he got up there without a rope and a harness, which is pretty dangerous. But make it make sense why he would have done that. Like, if Jay would have needed a rope to climb up there, what would have made you continue climbing up there? To then do a video to show us blood on a rock? I mean, when you actually think about it, what was you doing? You were literally creating content to make it look like. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about making it look like. Everything's been a make it look like. The wool being pulled over your eyes. And that's exactly what that bit of footage was with the blood in the mountain. It was wool being pulled over eyes. It was unnecessary content. It was irrelevant information. But guess what? DTR decided to record it, post it, engage with the comments of that video when literally it meant nothing. And what makes it worse, ladies and gentlemen, is that DTR done that whilst he was in the middle of searching for a missing person. Missing person that ended up being found dead at the bottom of a cliff. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to leave it there. Again, a video for perspective to help us understand a few aspects of the case, a few things that don't make any sense. As we've kind of deciphered in this video, the Jay Slater story is about making it look like. making it look like this happened, making it look like that happened, when really and truly more could have happened on both fronts. More could have been done in terms of rescuing Jay, and more could have been done to prevent Jay from finding himself in that position. And you know what, I've got a dirty fly in this house. Let me wrap up this video. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if we're newly watching. Plenty more videos uploading, more Jay Slater, some creepy, some mysterious, some disturbing. You don't want to go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit the like button. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.